Welcome to the Words That Change Lives podcast, helping leaders, coaches, and small business owners to 10 times the impact of their message. Join us as we delve into the art of powerful language, enabling you to speak with unwavering honesty, communicate authentically, and create a lasting impression with every word. We're strange creatures, we humans. At one level, we just want to eat, drink, play, and acquire more stuff. But life on the hedonic treadmill is ultimately dissatisfying. A beautiful remedy is to hop off it and instead begin pursuing an idea that's bigger than you are. This isn't me saying these words. This is Chris Anderson, the head curator of TED, an organisation which is focused on helping people spread ideas worth spreading. TED stands for Technology, Entertainment, Design. It's really an organisation that is global and has subsets which are TEDx, which are independently organised TED events that help to share those ideas that are bigger than you are. And I am really passionate about this subject. It's something that has been part of my own personal journey. And in the work that I do, I help people to share their ideas worth spreading. But TED is a unique concept. And if you want to stand on the TEDx stage and you want to land a TEDx gig, you might be someone who has an idea. You might be someone who wants to share something for the greater good. You want to have a positive ripple on the world. You might want to share your story because you want to inspire others. Or you might want to let someone know, or a group of people or an audience know, about an idea that can really shift things in society. And if you do, and if you have got that passion and you have got that vision, then this episode is for you. Because in this episode, I'm cracking the TEDx code and helping you to land a TEDx gig. And the reason why this is such a passionate subject for me is because, as I say, it's part of my story. I have already shared my story in the first few episodes of this podcast. If you haven't heard that, I recommend going back to episode 1 because I talk about my story in more detail. But this element of my story was born after a period of personal growth, a journey from a very dark place that I was in to one of enlightenment. I'd lost all my confidence in standing up in front of people, which I used to do in my corporate career, and I'd run away from it. And through this journey of personal discovery and realising that I did have a passion, I did have a vision, and I did want to help others, I knew that a really good way that I could prove to myself that I could stand up in front of a room full of people was to land a TEDx gig. And so I put that on my vision board, and 8 months later, it came true. Now, it wasn't a case of waving a magic wand. I had to put the work in to land that talk. And in this episode, I'm going to share some common challenges that I see my clients and my followers and the people that I speak to face when it comes to actually getting on the TEDx stage. Because seemingly there are a number of obstacles, but there is a code and I'm going to help you crack it. Because after I gave that talk at the Brighton Dome back in 2017 to a big audience of 1,500 people, things changed hugely for me. Not only in realising in a little bit of self-validation that I did have those skills, I could stand up and speak to a room full of people, that I hadn't lost my confidence and that I could do something like that. I did have courage to do that, but it was the ripple effect that went out as a result of giving that talk. It was the feedback I got from the audience in the pub afterwards, as well as online and people reaching out to me. And then that helped me niche down into the area of verbal communication. I put on speaker programs and conferences and really started to push forward with helping people do the same, to share their ideas, to share their words, to communicate effectively. And that led me to becoming a TEDx curator and coach. I was invited to be part of a team and I learned everything there is to know really about TED and the organisation, what it takes to put on an event that is a TEDx event, how you choose the theme of the event, because every event has a theme, how to get a license, and then putting the process in place of putting a call out to speakers and the criteria of selecting those speakers. So I've got both an external perspective in becoming a speaker for TEDx myself and an internal perspective in terms of selecting speakers and coaching them to deliver TEDx talks. So I do feel I've got a good view on it, and I really want to share that in this time that we have in this particular episode, because I know that a lot of people I speak to have that goal, but there are lots of obstacles in the way. And there are a number of common challenges I see. The first is that there's a lack of understanding of how TEDx works. A lot of people might think, oh, it's like a keynote talk, or I might actually want to promote my business on this stage. And that is not correct. TEDx have very strict guidelines in terms of the types of talks that are allowed on the TEDx stage, the types of topics that are discussed, and the guidelines of which are quite strict in terms of how those talks are shaped. Because when they eventually go up onto the YouTube channel, which is a TEDx YouTube channel, 38 plus million subscribers, there is a process for vetting those talks. And there can be obstacles and blockers there. So it's a different beast to landing a keynote talk on an industry stage. It's a different type of talk to that as well. And so I see a lot of lack of understanding, and that's understandable. You don't necessarily know how it works, but I've got that knowledge, and so I see that. Another challenge I see is fear and imposter syndrome over worthiness to deliver. So I see a lot of people saying, is my story big enough? Who's going to want to listen to it? Is my idea big enough? Is it good enough? Is it an idea worth spreading? I don't even know how to shape that idea properly that's going to be suitable for a TEDx talk. I'm not good enough. I'm not worthy. And this is a big challenge that I see. And I think it's because people put TEDx up there on a huge pedestal, which quite rightly so, because it is a credible badge of honour to achieve, to land and deliver a TEDx talk. But the imposter does seem to take over, and that can really hold people back. And I hear things like, I'm just going to wait until I've established myself more. I'm going to wait until I've got some paid keynote talks under my belt. I'm going to wait until I feel like I've got more experience in what I do. And, in some respects that might be valid. But one thing I do know is that, again, TEDx is a very different type of talk. And we're not, as curators and decision makers, necessarily looking for the most polished professional speaker with the speaker reel, because it's all about the idea. So the fear and the imposter syndrome can be something that can overtake people and prevent them from moving forward when actually they're probably ready right now. I also see a lack of clarity on the idea worth spreading. And a lot of people that come to me are business owners, they're coaches, consultants, and they have an idea they want to help others. It might be connected to their personal story or their experience, and they want to help other people with that. But they have lack of clarity on what that idea actually is and the angle which is going to really stand out. Because as we know now, there are actually millions of TEDx talks online. They happen all over the world, in all different countries. And yes, of course, there may be someone else who has spoken on your idea. But the thing is that it's unique to you, your idea, and it can be approached from an angle that is unique and does stand out. And another challenge I see is that the people that want to land a TEDx gig, a lot of them are not pitching their idea at the right level. They are maybe going in too niche or too to the level of maybe a customer or a client, rather than chunking it up to a more bigger, wider problem. A problem or a challenge or an idea that is bigger than them. And the final, most common challenge I see is people not knowing how to apply. And that is understandable because every TEDx event is independent. It's an independently organised TED event. Each team that are running that event have had to apply for a license. They have had to pitch that idea to TED, and they have to then go under the TED umbrella and follow all those guidelines, but they're independently run. And so each event is going to have a different application process. It's going to have a different way of showing up online. It's going to have a different way of communicating how you actually apply. And sometimes there isn't any information at all. And that can be a big stumbling block. And no, because I understand this, I understand what that looks like and generally how the different ways that you can apply. Of course, I've got the knowledge on that, but if you don't know, then you don't know. So in this episode, I really want to kind of crack that code. I want to share these things and how you can do these things. And so I can inspire you, hopefully, to go and share your idea worth spreading. So let's crack the code, right? Why your application needs a missing link. And I think The TEDx code, if I was to talk about it, is really, it's those things that you don't know before you're applying, that if you do know, you have a far greater chance of being successful in landing a TEDx talk. And really, the application process can be challenging without having this understanding. And this is why so many people might fall at the first hurdle, because they don't have this knowledge and they don't know the ways to go about it or what to actually put in their pitches. And so therefore they're not considered. And if we can crack this code, then you can really be noticed and you can really, really stand out. And I would say cracking the code falls under really looking at those key areas. It's being able to understand how it works and that it is unique and it is different. It's being to overcome those fears and quiet that imposter syndrome to know that you are worthy and that you do have an idea. It's having the clarity on what your idea worth spreading is, and then it's having the knowledge of knowing how to apply. That really is what cracking the code looks like to me. So those internal barriers are a big part of the problem, and we all have internal fears and doubts regarding applying for lots of things or doing many things, going for the thing that scares us, pushing ourselves outside our comfort zone. And that's very, very common. So the first thing I think to really boost your self-confidence is really identifying that all that you've achieved. And a really good way of doing that is casting back and looking at all the wins and achievements that you have made in your area of expertise or your particular subject area over the past few years or over however many years. Looking back and seeing those successes really can help to boost your knowledge, because we always look for the things we don't know. We're always focusing, we're hardwired to look for the bad rather than the good. It's really good to consciously force yourself to look at, what have I done? What am I great at? And so therefore, how am I worthy of actually sharing an idea on the TEDx stage? The other thing I recommend is a mindset technique of knowing that you're okay and that you're worthy. And a really important way of doing that is to really stick in your lane and focus on what you want to achieve and keep your eye on that vision. What's your North Star with this? What's your vision? And what does that actually look like? And almost propel yourself forward. So one of the things that I did when I was putting this on my vision board was I imagined what it would feel like at the end of my talk. And I actually visualized it on the Brighton Dome stage, which is a very big stage. I imagined the warm lights. I imagined the applause of the audience. I imagined feeling their warmth and their love and their support and knowing that I'd done it and it was a huge achievement. And this is called a retrospective resource state. If you visualize the end result on what you actually want to achieve, then you're focused on achieving that, and then it can naturally unravel and you can consciously take action towards it. The reticular activating system helps us to focus on either bad things or good things. So if we're focusing on the good, then we can naturally find our way by taking action to achieve it. And this is a really good way of boosting confidence, of overcoming fears, because if you can visualize what that looks like, then it can happen. And I will say, I'm not lying when I say this, the moment when I had the audience roaring and cheering and clapping at the end of my talk, and I felt the warm lights and I felt the warmth and support of the audience, it was exactly the same as I'd visualized it however many months before. And that to me is proof that we can scientifically wire our brains to seek out opportunities and boost our confidence and help us move forward towards our goals. Stay in our lane and stay focused, not compare ourselves to anyone else. It's easy to do that, especially if you start looking online at TEDx talks. Another thing I'll share is that when I gave my talk, I was second to last. I have shared in another episode. And so I watched everybody else's talk, and I'd only had 24 hours to prepare mine. And the imposter syndrome was overwhelming that day. I was thinking, gosh, they're so polished, they're so prepared, they're so confident. And it didn't really help my mindset, but I was able to channel my mindset back. You have the power to choose how you feel in any given moment. And a big part of going for a TEDx is overcoming those internal barriers. The next part is nailing your idea worth spreading. Now, this is a key element of landing a TEDx gig. Getting really clear on what the idea is crucial. Now, I do have a TEDx worthy checklist that can help with this. And I have had a previous episode where I go through this in more detail, which is about creating your idea worth spreading. So please go back and listen to that one, because that will go through this in a lot more detail. But taking time to think about your idea and thinking about how it is important in relation to the theme, which we'll talk about a bit more in a minute. Think about how your experience aligns with that and how you can talk on it, and also thinking about how it can benefit the audience. It's a big mistake, I see people make, is they might be coming at it from I'm going to be a speaker on a TEDx stage, rather than I have an idea that can really make a dent in society, can really help other people, that really can cause a positive ripple. And if we come at it from the angle of that, then it's easier to think of what that idea actually is. And when I do work with my clients, we work on what that core message is. What's the statement? What is the thing that you want to share? What is the belief or the opinion that's going to disrupt or disturb or challenge people's minds to think differently or become aware of something, maybe to provide comfort or hope for them or inspiration so that they can take action? Around your particular area of expertise, what is that idea? And I do recommend reading stuff that Chris Anderson talks about, because he talks about ideas worth spreading all the time. He's got lots of quotes, he's got lots of discussions around it, and he has a lot of wisdom clearly on the subject. So listening to what he says in terms of an idea worth spreading is also really useful. And a lot of people come to me and say, okay, I need you to help me write a TEDx talk. Well, the first thing you need to focus on is the idea worth spreading, because that is then going to help shape where you go for the talk, how you apply for the talk. And then once you've landed the talk, that's when you create it. As a curator, I have people coming to me with ready-made talks, and then they got on the lineup and they had to change their talk because it was overlapping with another speaker and a different sub-theme under the theme, a different category. Then there's all sorts of different categories with TED Talks. We have environment, we have culture, we have art, we have business, we have science. There's lots of different sub themes. And so it's about thinking, where does that fit and how is my idea going to help other people? Then we have the external obstacles of actually applying. So you've overcome your internal blockers. You are more aware of the whole process of TED and getting informed, understanding that a TEDx talk is, 15 to 18 minutes max. It's a different type of talk. It's focused on a concept and a few golden nuggets rather than lots of interaction. It's not a keynote talk. So getting an understanding around that is important. Overcoming internal fears and obstacles, then nailing your idea worth spreading, and then understanding the external obstacles and challenges that you may encounter. Because it isn't a one-size-fits-all approach to landing a TEDx gig. It really depends on the event. Now, for Moseley, we had a very thorough application process. It was very clear. We laid it all out on the website. We put a call out to speakers and we received applications, and that was our process. Now, for other events, that's not the case. They might have a social media representation. They might have a website. They might not. But the best place to start looking is on TEDx.com, because that's where you'll start finding your information about events. And then from there, you can do some Sherlock work and find out if there is a website or a social media presence, and if they're looking for speakers, or when the event is actually happening. This is a bit of research, and it is required for you to then overcome any obstacles that you have about knowledge and clarity, and maybe a lack of confidence, so you can get yourself in the know about exactly what is required. And as I say, each application process is different. I think we had a 4-stage process. So, I received all the applications and we had a form that the people filled in and certain things that they included. And then we filtered down from there and had different rounds of application. And I think the final lineup was, it was about 14 in total. We had performances as well as speakers. And it's about understanding how you can present yourself in the most succinct way, and nailing your idea worth spreading is really going to help with that. Understanding how it's going to impact the audience, understanding how it's in alignment with the theme is also really going to help with that. And I'd say this is the second biggest obstacle, apart from the idea worth spreading and the internal fears that can really get in the way of people applying. And it's about detaching from the outcome. It's about knowing that I'm putting my idea forward and I'm not attaching to an outcome. I'm not going to take it personally if I don't get through. I'm going to continue because it is competitive. There are a lot of people, but if you know how to stand out and you know how to put yourself in the best light and your idea in the best light, then the curators will sit up and listen to what you have to say. And that is how you stand out in an application process. So that's really, in my view, how you crack the TEDx code. And not to be massive promo here, but that's why I work with people on this, because I have that knowledge. I have been part of that world. I'm not a curator now, currently. And so I help people one-to-one, and I also have courses that can help people. I have a land and deliver course that can help people to land a TEDx gig, which is a self-study and a hybrid. And I have one-to-one coaching as well. And at certain points in the year, I run live programs as well and offer challenges too. So that's something to look out for if you are thinking of landing a TEDx gig, or you want to know more, or you want to be part of this discussion, then reach out to me at hello@helenpackham.com, where you see some links in the show notes of this episode that will help you start to navigate your journey of landing your dream TEDx gig and realizing that it absolutely can be part of your reality. So share online your thoughts with the Words That Change Lives hashtag. Get in touch with me at hello@helenpackham.com, or have a look to see what's available in the show notes in terms of what's on offer at the moment for you to be able to land that dream gig. And I'll look forward to seeing you next time on Words That Change Lives. Thanks for listening to Words That Change Lives. Please rate, review and follow on Apple Podcasts or wherever you listen to your podcasts. It really means the world and helps me to reach more people so that we can all harness the power of our words and change lives for the better.